All right. Welcome to the podcast with me, Michael, and Bryce.
Hello.
With special guest, Peter Goomroyan. Say hi.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
All right. So today we're going to be reviewing the Apocalyspe Trilogy. If you don't know what that is, it's The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and In the Mouth of Madness. I'm going to give you a short summary for both or all three of these right now. So for The Thing, a group of researchers are met with an alien creature that imitates and assimilates, and it's a struggle to survive to tell who is real or just an imitation. So let's go ahead and start with The Thing. Bryce, what are your thoughts right now?
On the entire movie?
Yeah, give me a general thought.
Well, I think it's the best of the trilogy, personally.
I would agree with that statement.
That might not be a controversial opinion at all. I might have some of those later down the line, but this one by far I think is really good. I have relatively few problems with it. Yeah.
Okay. Peter, what about you?
I mean, I enjoyed it. I actually don't think this is my favorite of the entire trilogy, much to many people's dismay, probably. I thought it was well done. Like, John Carpenter is just one of my favorite horror movie directors. Like, he just does a good job every single time. And every single one of the trilogy movies was great, and this one was just the best one to kick it off with, obviously, since it was the first one. So
yeah, I obviously, like, if you people don't know who I am, like, or my taste in horror movies, like, this one is right up my alley. And I think I first saw this movie, like, or parts of it, like, when I was 6. Like, I specifically saw the doctor scene with the stomach, and that terrified me from horror movies for a long time.
Oh god. Yeah. The one with the dog was just oh god.
yeah, but like fuck, cut. Damn it. See, I told you this happens a lot.
Yeah.
All right, give me a second. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, like this movie has got so much going for it. You know, like as far as like special effects, we could talk about that for an entire
That's an entire
hour.
podcast, yeah.
Like, yeah. We can talk about like all the special effects, and we are going to talk about them to a certain extent. But we'll start to talk more about it when we compare the three movies. But like, and there's a great video that you guys should all go check out. It's a good bad flicks. He does the analysis of the special effects with Rob Bottin and the production side of the movie. You should go check out that channel in general. It's a great way to learn about like what goes behind movies. But yeah, like I mean, like personally for me, this movie has everything that you'd look for in a horror movie. You have great tone, you have great lighting, which is it's always dark. You know, you're always in a state of you're always in a state of uncomfortability, and
paranoia.
It's the tension is always paranoia. The tension is always there.
Same thing.
The tension is always there because you don't know who's an alien, like who's the thing or who's like the real person. And another thing that goes along with it is like there's a lot of theories that you can come up with watching it and going back. Like this is a movie that you can watch multiple times with and come up with your own theories and not really be right or wrong at the same time. Because of the way it ends, like it ends very vaguely.
Oh yeah.
And bleakly, like what this thing has going for it, it does set the tone for the trilogy. And like this isn't a conventional trilogy, as in like they're connected by plot. They're connected in what I think as a thematic way.
Yeah.
And obviously,
about the end of the world coming, like you know.
Right. Obviously, like there's Carpenter's like style of directing that makes it like connected, but like as far as filmmaking wise, like there are certain things that you can point to in this that really connect it.
Yeah.
You know, I thought personally the characters in this were much better than I think both like Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness. I think In the Mouth of Madness does a very good job with the character cast that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think the same thing can be said about Prince of Darkness. I think that you really do get a good sense of camaraderie with the little time you have spent with the group in the thing. Like the main character is Kurt Russell,
Young Kurt
McCready.
Russell. This is like at the beginning of his career, right?
This is I don't know if this is the beginning of his career. It's like This movie came out in 1982,
right? And he was doing stuff
82,
in the
yeah.
70s.
And if you guys don't know, this is actually a remake of
The 1950
a
version.
movie from 1951, which is called The Thing from Another World.
Well, technically, it's not a remake of that, but it's an adaptation of the book because the original film from 1951 didn't follow the book very closely at all. So
Not at all.
Well,
calling it a remake isn't necessarily accurate in that sense. Although it is a second movie to be based on the source material.
Right. It's more of like like you said, an adaptation or like a reimagination. Although it's actually, this movie is the most accurate portrayal of John Campbell's novella, which this is all based off the novella called Who Goes There.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I'm like looking to read that.
This movie was hated when it first came out. Like critics gave this movie
Right.
like a terrible review. Even the original director of the 1950 version of the thing hated it. They're like, it's a waste of time and you shouldn't go see it. And
Right.
you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the part of the reason for that is because the movie like came out when not it was coming out, but when E.T. was coming out.
Oh yeah, and E.T. was just
So,
taking the
that
movie thing with
it just
storm.
like it came out at a bad time, and then it was like like this was a time where aliens were portrayed as good, and like we were kind of past the aliens, and we were like in the new age of like new aliens, you know, like the good aliens that help out.
Yeah.
And this was complete contrast of what E.T. was. You know, it was like this sinister evil force that you didn't understand. I think like one of the things I really enjoy about the movie, like specifically, is the creature. You know, like there isn't a lot of like, you don't see the creature a lot in the movie. Like you see it a good amount, but a lot of it, like a lot of the tension that comes from it is just not knowing. And I think the one thing that this does well that a lot of horror movies nowadays doesn't do well is that it doesn't give you the reward of the creature like all the time. And I think like when you watch it's evident when you watch the prequel, like the prequel / remake. I think that's more of a remake than it is.
That's the 2011 one or like 2005 or something along that.
2011.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Universal Studios picked up the rights and like pretty much made that, and then I think they made a really successful video game off of that too. Actually.
Yeah, the video game actually, which a little bit of factoid, Carpenter acknowledged it as canon and
he was like, it's great.
The true sequel to
the
original.
true sequel to the thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, like you could take a sequel for, I think, with exception to In the Mouth of Madness, like Prince of Darkness and The Thing, like both of these movies could get sequels, and The Thing did get like, it's a prequel, but like everybody knows, like a sequel is just a prequel is just a sequel with a way to make more money off of it, you know, like off of the original one. It's banking off the original one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, I think we can go like start talking. Like we kept this pretty vague here. We can start talking about spoilers. So this is your official spoiler warning. If you haven't checked out the movie, you should go pause this right now and watch it. So, I mean, I think with pacing with this movie, it's interesting because there's absolutely no buildup. I think. Except for if you want to consider that when the Norwegians are flying over and like shooting at the Thing dog.
Yeah, I'd count
if you
that
want to
as
consider
build-up.
that a build-up, you can. But I think that doesn't qualify as a build-up for this movie.
Well, it definitely adds a lot of dramatic irony. I don't think dramatic irony is the right word, but it's like the viewer knows what it is, but the characters don't, and that adds a layer of tension, I think.
Well, like I think like I said, like
Or even
there's a
just
lot of
reflecting back on it.
the like not knowing what's going on, but like
Mhm.
the thing that I feel that's very like fluid or consistent within the trilogy is the situation, like it masks what's going on, like what's the true evil that they're facing, like because when you when
It's
it
always
starts,
this questioning, and John Carpenter does that really well. Like, he tries to consistently ask their watcher to question, I think, what you're trying to watch, and I think that's like why people don't like his endings, or at least why like the mass media didn't like his endings, because none of his movies ever ended in a way that was like the conventional horror ending where someone gets the happy ending. He was always like wanting you to think about what you're doing. And I think that's like such a Carpenter thing to do, and he did that with this movie. He did that with Prince of Darkness, especially Prince of Darkness, and he did that with In the Mouth of Madness really well. So.
well, I think people don't like his endings because they're depressing.
They are depressing, which is like the non-conventional like horror movie ending.
But it's really funny though. Like you can't go into an Apocalypse trilogy going like I'm gonna get a happy movie out of this. Like it's
fair
sort of
enough,
like,
yeah.
knowing what you're like the content that you're going with. But like to the point that I was making though, like when the Norwegians come in, there's a language barrier. So you can't understand the level of danger that the researchers are getting into.
Oh, yeah.
You have no idea. Like there's no sense of real danger, and like you have a sense of like, okay, something's not right here, but I don't know what's wrong with it. Like there's something wrong with this dog. And like it's not good news, but you don't know what happens with it. And like here's where I think it does a really good job, like in between the first sequence and the first like introduction of the thing, like as a creature, they do a good like job of building up some of the characters there, like seeing how they interact with each other. The group dynamics really it really makes the movie for me, you know, like there is a sense of urgency, like you have a little bit of a connection with them, like you know who the characters are. Like I have certain favorites. Like I like Windows and Blair. Like he's a pivotal part of the movie. If you guys don't know or like don't remember the names, like Blair is the doctor. He's not really the doctor.
He's the older
He's
man,
like
right? He's the one with the glasses.
Well, he's like I think he's like the lead researcher there. Like there's the doctor, and I don't remember his name. He's not him, and the dog dude aren't really the most important in that. But like Childs, like Keith David's character, like he's always awesome in every movie that I think he's been in. He's just got that awesome voice, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, like I liked most of the characters, but unfortunately, I didn't really like Kurt Russell's character that much. I think he was a little too edgy for my taste, with like what they were trying to portray him as this calm and cool, collected character, and I think it came off as like. You know, like really edgy and just really like someone trying to come off as like not himself. But I did like all the other characters.
I would disagree completely, but I also have a huge bias on this. Bryce, what's your take?
Well, I think my biggest flaw with the movie was the characters, except it wasn't that big of a flaw for me. So, I did think Kurt Russell's character was kind of an archetypical manly man who, like, served his role as like the guy who kind of takes charge and tries to figure things out, but he didn't really leave a super strong impression on me.
Me neither. I would agree with you.
Well, like, see, here's the thing where, like, I don't know, like, I think his character design too, like the like you said, like his archetype, like the manly man character, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, like, since this is a Carpenter movie, like, he's not like, oh, he's the hero, saves everything. Like, there is a sense like there's loss, you know, like they lose people here, and I don't know. There's a lot of times where like while they destroy it, there's like a new problem, or like it divides and what's the word I'm looking for? Like it repopulates itself kind of, because it's like the thing is a cellular being that imitates everything and assimilates and then builds itself up. What's interesting, like you could think about as a thing, because It starts off like the opening credits. It's a ship crashing towards Earth, which I think in the 1951 version it does as well, and they do like a similar style opening. Which good on Carpenter for doing a nod to the original film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good on Carpenter for doing that, but like when taking in conjunction with the prequel, like. It could be noted like the creature is like constantly learning, and the assimilation, like all the tentacles and teeth that you see come out of it could be a combination of everything that it's assimilated. It's sort of like a virus, like I would say it is a virus.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be a
virus.
parasitic thing. Like, I think
Yeah.
from, like that one scene in the movie where, like, I don't remember who it was observing it, but on the computer, they took a cell sample or a blood sample of the thing that had died.
It was
Blair, right? And it saw that it
Yeah.
was, like, starting to assimilate into, like, the normal, like, blood cells of, like, the other organism. So, like, it just consistently goes around from organism to organism, and you can't tell the difference because it turns exactly into that organism. So, like, that was a big thing, like, trying to find out. And they did the blood test. Kurt Russell would take, like, a hot, like, copper, I think it was, and he put it, and he would do the blood test. And that's how he would test if that would be within each person. I thought that was kind of a cool scene.
That part of the movie, I always point to, like, that's the best part of the movie, like, and it represents what I think, as a whole, I like about the movie, because it's so tense, and there's not a lot of dialogue, and it's just a lot of like silence and waiting for it. You know that this is coming. They basically spell it out for you. The thing is here, and you're just waiting for when it's gonna happen, and you're like, this is building the tension. And when it doesn't use jump scares all that often. I think this is the only jump scare that it has in the movie. But it's with an effect and with purpose. It's not just to try and get a cheap scare out of the audience. Like, there's some purpose to it. And then when it happens, like, it ramps it up. Like, I think one thing you can say about, like, all of these movies is whenever something exciting happens, it knows how to dial it back down and build it back up. And it sort of, like, has swells and diminishes. But, like... it paces, like, all these movies pace themselves very well, I think, like, as opposed to the movies like we've been reviewing before, like I feel like pacing has no issue with this. Like what do you think about that, Bryce?
I think of the three movies, this one might have the best. I think the pacing's pretty good in The Mouth of Madness 2, but...
that one was my favorite one out of the three.
I would definitely agree the pacing is better in The Mouth of Madness, and I think in Prince of Darkness. And, like, we'll get into my issues with Prince of Darkness when we start.
And my issues, too.
Okay. I think you and I are going to have a lot to say about that. I don't know about you, Peter.
It's
10
like,
pages of notes. On these movies.
I don't know. When we get there, we'll get there. It's got its things that I like, and it's got its things that I don't necessarily care for.
Yeah, and like bringing it back to like Kurt Russell, like one of the reasons like I would disagree with him being the typical, or like he's trying to play a male archetype player, like, or he's just that really like lumberjack kind of character. I don't know. Like I personally feel like that. He wasn't trying to play that. Like that's just like his character, or like his swagger when he's an actor. Like, and I would point to, like, if you've seen that movie, what is it, Death Proof, which is I think is that Quentin Tarantino, or is that the Rico?
What movie?
What's his name? Rodriguez.
I have no idea what movie this is.
What movie did you say?
That one is it's called Death Proof. It's like where Kurt Russell's character is this stunt driver who's killing people in his car because it's death proof for him. Yeah.
Let me look here. Oh, it's Quentin Tarantino. Yeah.
Okay, that one. Are you sure that's Quentin Tarantino?
I just looked it up. I just Googled it. Yeah.
That's
Quentin
Tarantino.
Yeah, it's Quentin Tarantino.
Okay, we got sidetracked there, but no, like I think like that's just his persona as an actor. Like if you look at it in any other movie, but like I think it really works for this movie. Like he's just like kind of like the sly cowboy in there, and he really I think brings the cast together. Like he's the glue. I mean, obviously he's the main character.
Yeah,
but,
I
like,
mean, you
feel
kind of
like
have
he's
to
the
make
glue
the glue
between.
your main character, right?
Right.
So.
We mentioned his name too, like a bunch of times, but Wilford Diabetes Brimley is in here as Blair. Bryce, what are your thoughts as his portrayal of that character?
I'm trying to remember which one Blair was. Was he the one who went really paranoid?
Yes, he was the one that like tore up the. He's
Uh,
awesome. He throws like an axe into their radio systems.
Yeah.
Once he figures out the thing
Yeah,
can like
who did
assimilate
Wilford
the
Brimley
entire
play
Earth
as in this
population.
I mean, you. Was that?
What was that, Peter?
Who did Wilford Brimley play as in this movie again? I don't remember seeing.
Blair.
Really?
The guy who kind of goes nuts.
Oh
He
yeah, he
becomes
just
the
didn't have a
big-
mustache.
He becomes the big thing at the end.
Wow, no, that's right. He just didn't have a mustache. I did not recognize him without the fucking mustache. Oh
Yeah,
my
that's
god.
right. Well,
You're right, it is the same
Diabetes is
actor.
in
I
the
had no
movie.
idea he was the actor playing Blair. I was like, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, small world.
Yeah, well, like I think that could be said like too about like these three movies. It's like there aren't a lot of big names in the like as far as acting goes. Like in this movie, you have Kurt Russell and Keith David and Wilford Brimley. That's the top three people that are in the movie
Sure.
that you would know.
But I mean, John
You don't know
Carpenter didn't really
anybody
get
else,
a ton
like-
of like. He got a lot of like one-hit wonder actors. Does that make sense? Like, in the
No,
like,
no. A one-hit wonder would not be appropriate to use in the sense for acting. I think you would be looking more like B-list actors.
I guess so. B-list actors that he got, because he got John Trent in The Mouth of Madness, and he did another movie that was like really popular
Sam
too.
Neill, the guy he's referring to is Sam Neill.
Sam Neill, yeah.
Yeah.
John Trent is the name of the actual character in the movie. Sorry.
Right.
But he got him to do stuff. He got, God, who was it in Prince of Darkness that he had gotten?
Well,
again?
Prince of Darkness, I think what you could argue that was like B-list and all C-list
For
characters.
the
Like,
most part, yeah.
like he got the fuck. I don't even know most of their names. I know Pat Moriarty. Not Moriarty? Fuck, Karate Kid guys in that movie.
Yeah.
Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm
There
sorry
we
that
go.
I suck at saying last names. I forgot his last
That's
name.
right. It is Mr. Miyagi. That's who
Yeah,
I'm
and
thinking
then-
of. That I was like, who did he get again? That's like really popular and like.
Well, like, yeah, that guy, and then the priest was the therapist from the Halloween movies. So he got
Yeah.
a returning actor
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And he's not really, like, B level. He's probably C level acting. Like, as far as known. I mean, I think, like, that was him and Carpenter, like, obviously they work together. That's probably why he was in this movie. He's always. We're already talking about Prince of Darkness. He's always good, I think, whenever I see him. But reeling it back to the Thing. Oh man, like I think we have to talk about the effects here. Like
Yes.
So good.
specifically,
Really, really good.
Specifically, my favorite effect in this movie is when what's his name, the fat guy dies. I forgot his name.
Oh, and
but
the-
when he dies,
yeah.
yeah, and then the chest mouth,
Yes.
or stomach mouth. That
Oh
was
yeah, when it
some of the
opens up
most,
and
like-
they're like trying to look for the guy and he eats his hand and like, oh god, yeah. I think the dog, the beginning of the
Oh.
movie where the dog like assimilated with the Thing and you have this just giant monstrosity. God,
And the
terrifying.
ring of
man.
tongues.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
look-
exactly.
you're-
Jesus Christ.
You're looking at the height of practical effects. Like this was
Super
just
well
before
done.
we got into CGI.
Oh god, yeah, dude. Everything's done by
Yeah.
cast and everything. It's like
It's all
Well,
like
like,
animatronics
part of, like-
and stop motion, and it's all really
it's
well done.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
really
Right.
well
Well, part
done.
of what it was like they used puppetry in it too,
Yeah.
which was interesting. Like when they were using the I guess you'd call it like a spider head thing. When that thing that was a puppet.
That was a
and
puppet?
That was,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, that
I
was a
didn't know
puppet.
that.
No, the entire that entire monster I think was like a robot puppet thing.
That's really cool. That's
Right.
super unique, and I think that's like even more impressive than all the CGI stuff that we have now in comparison. I think when you put that
Well,
much
like,
labor and work into
especially-
it, it just ends up being
Especially
that much
when
cooler.
you look at the amount of work that Rob Bottin, who was the special effects guy, guy. He was
Yeah.
the creator, I guess. But Rob Bottin, like when you look at the amount of work that he went into, which is in that Good Bad Flicks video, like you guys really should check that out.
I've watched
It's
it. I've watched his videos before. Good
Yeah,
Netflix is awesome.
When no, I'm telling the audience.
Oh, okay.
I'm not telling
I thought
you,
you
Peter.
telling us. So I was like, oh, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, like he spent a lot of time, and it really was like his passion project. You see that. I mean, like the fact that what makes it work so well is the lighting. You know,
Oh, yeah.
the lighting is so dark that it looks both like real and like from out of this world, which is the exact right thing that you need to do with this film. You know, you have to make this creature look like it's from the from other places, and like I think even when like the thing is not active, like when they're doing the whole autopsy scene, that is brilliant. Like it looks like a real organism, and I think they use like real animal like organs too. Like
Really?
they use real
Oh, wow.
real organs. Yeah, and like the creature, whenever you see it, it's always like slimy and
Yes.
nasty.
Oh yeah, of
gunky.
course.
Like it like I think you know when after the stomach mouth opens and the head's like coming off like that part like always gives me a little bit of shivers, and because it's so creepy and
It's
nasty
really
to
well
look at.
done. It's just
Well,
good.
I think they also use like gum. They use gum to like make
I
his
can see
head
that.
come
Yeah.
off.
It looks
The-
really realistic, though. I mean, regardless, they just always manage to make it like.
Well, and like how they did I'm just gonna say how they did the stomach scene. They like took a double amputee and like had him wear a mask of the actor's face for that, and they use like jelly bones for. The ingenuity of practical effects, like there's something to be
It's
said
so
about
crazy,
that.
man.
They don't.
It's
They really
like,
don't
they
hold
could
back.
Use it.
Yeah, they really go
I
all
think-
out.
I think the reason like we've seen more of a shift towards like computer imaging and CGI is just because of the ease.
That's
now
literally
have
it. Yeah, it's
And the
just
budget,
10 times
probably.
easier.
in the budget. Well, like but the
Depending
thing is,
on
like,
depending on the effects, I guess.
the thing is like you can do a lot with a low budget with
Yeah.
practical effects. You just have to like lighting. I think is about 60% of what makes practical effects work. Like if you've seen the alien creature in like a regular lighting, you think like this is ridiculous. This is just a dude in a costume.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But when you see it on film, like you see like there's all this slime and shit. Like the part of the best effect of it is when you get the slime, like the griminess of the creature, like really nasty and dirty. And like you know that this creature will do anything to kill you or assimilate you. Like it's a true apex predator, I would think. But it does it in a way like it's not like trying to flaunt its power. It's
trying to
I keep
survive.
calling it.
Yeah.
Trying to
No,
survive.
it's
Just surviving,
it's
you know.
ultimate survival for it. But like I think it's one of the smartest creatures that you'll see on the screen because it does imitate for so long for creatures. Like you start to question like who like okay, now this guy is the thing, but how long was he the thing, and how many people in this group are the thing? It's so awesome. Like one thing that they didn't translate from the book or the novella rather to the movie was that the thing actually has like telepathic powers and could read thoughts, which sounds like a cool thing, but I think might make it like the creature would be overpowered. But then again, like Carpenter, I think if he did, like he could find a way to work an angle with that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be harder to do on film too, especially if
it
you're not
would-
going to cover the thing's point of view.
Especially with how
specifically.
limited of a budget that they consistently had for like all three of these movies. I think the
Right.
Thing had the most out of the three. I could be wrong, but
Well, I don't think budget was ever really the issue because Carpenter is like such a big director, like he can get the budget, and especially at that time too, like he hadn't really had a decline with his films like he has now. Like if you check, like Carpenter still makes movies, but they're just not.
they're
the
the
same
same anymore.
They're
oh
not
yeah.
the same.
Totally agree.
And like I don't know, like he might need to do something different, but that's neither here nor there.
I mean, he's just
I
growing
like,
older,
the
man.
issue-
You know what I mean? Like things
Yeah.
just change.
Like the issue with the films is that they just didn't get good box offices. Like
Oh,
they
yeah,
become
no,
more
they're
of a
cult classics.
like
Cult
well,
classics.
this one in particular is a cult classic,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's regarded by many as one of the best films made.
Oh yeah, they talk
Like,
about
people-
this in film school. Like this movie is used for so many things in film schools now. It's
Well, we have a film school student here, Bryce.
Yeah, I
Can
guess
you
so.
confirm that?
oh wow.
I
okay.
haven't watched any of my classes yet, anyway.
I mean, I think that would probably be more in like the practical effects. I think that's part of what Carpenter is.
Yeah, I can definitely
I-
see this being taught from a practical effects standpoint because of how much they do and how well they do it and how many variations of it they find in the movie.
You know, like, and I think like as far as like plot wise, it's pretty linear. Like, there's nothing really that that there's talk about like or a deeper message. I think that the
Well,
biggest thing
there's-
is like you could argue that this is like an allegory for the AIDS epidemic
Yes.
because
Sure.
I think that's
That's
what
not
it
a
was.
bad conclusion
Yeah,
to come across. I
especially
would
with
think so.
how much they emphasize the blood and other fluids and the fact that the AIDS epidemic was happening at the time. And you can actually find this connection in at least also the Prince of Darkness. But I do think that is probably intentional symbolism there.
I didn't quite notice see the connection in the blood part, but I get what you're saying. I thought that the connection was that when the AIDS epidemic happened, there was so little known about like how the disease was transferred, and it was more about like you didn't trust who you were around, like who could have this disease, and that's like basically what the thing is. Like, who is the thing? Like, how do you know who is who? How do you know who you are? Like, how do you know that you're you?
Yeah.
When
And
you've been assimilated. That's like that actually is like it brings up a deeper question too. Like if you ever wanted to like explore that.
Yeah.
But to like wrap up like some of my final thoughts for this and like so we can move on to Prince of Darkness. I really like the fact that you don't know a lot about the creature. Like that
And it
is
should
part
stay
of
that
what
way.
makes
I think
what
it's
makes
good.
it so alien is that you don't know. And I think there's a really good there's a good build of characters. Like you actually care what goes on, like what consequences that happen with some of these characters. And I don't know, like I felt like I really felt like this movie was clear, like first, second act, like it was just good all the way through for me. Let's get your guys' final thoughts for this movie.
Bryce, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I think the AIDS symbolism is pretty at the forefront, and I think it's an interesting change of pace since the original novella and then the first adaptation were more about communism as the unseen force that was spreading throughout. But this definitely adapted to the times in that respect. So I can appreciate that. And then from a craft standpoint, like the creature effects and the puppets and the stop motion, it's all really well done. And like you've got the belly opening, like the insect appendages and the crawling head and the dog's face like splitting into 4 parts.
Yeah.
It's just like A+ body horror monster work all around. And
If I can interject too, like
Yeah.
I think the one thing the 1951 version, like just from how you're describing the original novella being an allegory for the like communism, I think like that one actually does it a little bit more towards that message than it does towards the 80s one. But I know but like just to wrap it up, like that's kind of what you should do with movies. Peter?
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I think it's like an overall around like good horror movie in itself. I think the special effects that were done with the movie are something on a next level. AIDS allegory for sure. Like I don't think I was thinking about that at the time when I was watching the movie, but like now that you mention it in accordance with like what was going on in the real world versus like what was going on with the movie, I definitely think that's something that you can like talk about. Just body horror, I think the special effects, the makeup that's done on all the things. The thing I like about these like 80s horror movies is they always go like above and beyond. You can tell how much of a passion project like this movie was for like John Carpenter and for the people working on it. Um, and I think like that's also, I don't think it's as reflective in his other movies as much as it is in The Thing.
Mhm.
I think The Thing was kind of his baby in comparison to the other trilogy movies, because you definitely see that decline in Prince of Darkness versus The Thing.
Yeah.
But
Well, he brings it right back within the mouth. Of
yeah,
Madness.
I agree. I agree with that. I think he like takes a dip of Prince of Darkness and then he does In the Mouth of Madness, which is just an absolutely insane movie. Like that movie is
Indeed.
absolutely
Aptly titled.
Aptly titled, yeah, like absolutely just crazy movie. But regardless, yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's my favorite one, and I think everyone already can tell which one's my favorite movie out
Yeah.
of the three. But it was good.
I
enjoyed it.
I like where you're going with this, Peter. So this makes an easier transition for me. So now that we've got our final thoughts, we're gonna move to Prince of Darkness. So here's our summary for Prince of Darkness. A priest enlists the help of a physics professor and his team of researchers to discover what secrets lie in the old church. Okay, so with that being said, let's get the general thoughts from you two. Peter, you go first since you like this movie.
Like, it's not my favorite. No. My favorite is In the Mouth of Madness. But I actually thought that the movie, like, idea, premise was cool. I think the things that I didn't like about the movie were the acting. I really think that, like, the pace and the acting of the movie was really not as good as, like, The Thing was or In the Mouth of Madness was. I think the idea of science versus religion was a really cool mini theme that they put it through. I think, you know, the priest, how he was explaining, one of my favorite lines in the movie was like the priest saying, "You guys are so enveloped in your idea of common sense instead of thinking about like the things that are coming." Which was like talking about how, you know, I think the priest was saying that, you know, Satan is stronger when people don't believe in him. Satan is a problem when people think that he's not a real threat to the world.
Right.
And he really was exemplified because you have, you know, it was talking about how, I think there was something to do at the beginning of the movie. What was his name? The blonde guy with the mustache who's the main character.
I have the
Brian?
notes here, but like
Was it
I'll be
Brian?
honest, when I was watching this movie, most of these characters like just didn't matter.
They were,
to
yeah,
me,
I
but-
didn't
Yeah.
matter to me either. They were very
of them.
forgettable characters. I will have to agree with that.
Yeah,
Like-
and I'm obviously going to get more. Like I have a more detailed thing. I just want to get you guys in here first.
Yeah, like they talked about how like the supernova wave, I think, affected the slime in the chamber, which had to do of like years and years of being under slumbered, but the power from
We
the
are in
supernova
spoiler
wave-
talk now, just to let everybody know.
Yeah, technically. I mean, the supernova affected that, and that's why it woke up, and like the priest couldn't really figure it out, so he had to hire the physicists to be able to come and do the research to figure out why, you know, why is this happening now all of a sudden. And I think it had to do with,
Oh,
like, there were no more guardians of the chamber. The last one died, I believe, after thousands of years of guarding, and the last priest or whatever that was supposed to guard the slime, like, didn't guard it. Or didn't pass on how to handle it anymore, so this priest was, like, freaking out, and that's why he, like, approached all the physics people.
by the way, I found his name again. It was Brian Marshall.
Brian Marshall, yeah.
So you can already tell, like his name is so bland,
It's
and
just-
his character.
The characters
is
are
bland.
bland. The characters were just
Yeah.
absolutely boring to watch. You have this
Minus the
typical
trumpet guy.
The trumpet guy? Which one was
Yeah,
that
the guy
one?
who's trumpeting with his mouth.
Oh,
This is just
Oh,
a
yeah,
side
the Asian
character.
dude. The
He
Asian
wasn't
dude.
really a big deal or anything. I just found him amusing.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can go on.
But like, yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it. I think there were like the typical tropes. Like, you had the blonde, good-looking guy who's just like really smart, and then he like falls in love with this redhead, and they like bang, basically. And then after that, they, you know, oh, she becomes like the focus toward the end of the movie. Big spoiler. Like, he sees her in his dreams, like, as, like, the Prince of Darkness, or Satan, like, personified at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, so I guess we just all together skipped going without spoilers here, but that's fine.
I mean, I would assume by now our listener would know that we're going to be talking about majority of the chunk of things that are happening of the movie. Special effects, I don't think were anything crazy in this movie either. The only thing that I thought was really interesting, and man, was that guy brave. The insect scene when the guy was outside and he had all the insects crawling on him. Those were real insects for portions of the shots.
Looks like it. Yeah,
for portions of the shots they were real insects, and I was like, that's impressive.
If I can interject here, that was the strongest part of the movie, and that is another linking factor into these three. You can tell how that shot, how that was done, is similar or the same to The Thing or In the Mouth of Madness. It was a very well shot practical effect. That one I think is the best part of the movie for me.
Yeah.
Continue, Peter, though.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, how that's a part of a really good movie, because one of the famous lines from that movie is, "Hey, I've got some news for you, but you're not going to like it." That was one of the most, I think, for most people, was one of the more memorable lines of that movie. Not that that's saying a lot, considering most of the movie wasn't exactly very memorable, I think.
Well, what they do, too, with the voice, too, they do this awesome audio distortion of his voice.
Yeah.
That to me right there, I appreciate that so much too. They made that such a creepy situation too. I think this one too also shares, I didn't mention this before, but in The Thing, the big part of what makes it scary is that they're in isolation. This one also deals with isolation, but not quite at the same extreme.
Yeah, I would say that. I would agree it's not the same as The Thing. Fun fact, I didn't know this. Alice Cooper was heavily involved with the making of this movie.
Yeah, he's kind of a pivotal part of the movie.
Yeah, he's the zombie, not the zombie, the hobo, the head hobo, basically.
Oh.
And and the thing that they impaled the guys with, right? At the beginning of the movie, the icicle or whatever that the hobo is.
The bicycle.
Yeah, the bicycle. That is the actual prop that Alice Cooper used on his stage performances when he impaled one of his band members as a showmanship thing, and they just basically modified to make it look like a bicycle for the movie. I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought it was cool that they got him to be involved with it and have a kind of a pivotal role in the movie. And
Bryce, what about you? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on the movie? Well, I thought it was kind of a mess, personally. I think the best part of the movie was probably the creature effects and body horror, which were strong. Probably the weakest of the trilogy, in my opinion, but still fairly strong and well done. All the bugs and, the skinless face. It was pretty cool. And I think the cinematography was fine, and the acting was okay sometimes.
Cinematography was definitely a strong point of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that basic technical stuff that I found to be the strongest. Meanwhile, I kind of, thematically, I thought it tried exploring religion and science, and it tried exploring the degradation of logic, but it kind of fell flat for me.
I thought that was very weak too. I thought that they introduced the topic, but then they at the same time tried to explain it, but not explain it.
They're constantly saying your stubborn faith and common sense and your disbelief powers this, and then you've got the scientist characters completely dismissing anything that might go against their expectations.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it almost works as a meta layer, the movie saying, if this doesn't make sense, that's just because it's not going the way you expect it to. And it's saying that to the audience, it feels like. But then it also tries to talk about religion and science, but it's already eliminated reason, which is the basis for discussion, essentially. So I have no idea what it was trying to say, really. It was just a constant because we can kind of thing for me.
Right. Well,
yeah.
I agree. This was very, very sloppy with the actual the theme of it. I mean, the overarching theme of the trilogy is consistent in this, but the actual theme of the movie is very vague. And
John Carpenter did that on purpose, though, for sure, with this one.
Yeah, but like I just don't think it was executed well. Like that's my issue with the movie. Like this movie doesn't have a good execution. And to get into like my thoughts of it, like I know I'm kind of interjecting here, but like I thought that the first 30 I wouldn't even call it the first 30 minutes. I'd call it the first like 10-15 minutes. There's so much that's going on in that first 10-15 minutes. Like the pacing there is just irregularly fast. And like I liked that they did a lot of show don't tell, but they contradict that in the movie when they start to get into the science of it, and then they start over explaining shit and then
it's a bunch of
dumbing
mumbo
it down.
jumbo.
Yeah, there was a lot of like that pseudoscience bullshit. Like there was real science that was interjected into there, but there was a lot of shit.
Oh, this was definitely a pseudoscience bullshit movie. 100%.
Yeah, well, like there was a lot of times where I'm just like, man, I'm not into like astrophysics and like theoretical relativity, and I don't know if theoreticals are. See, like you can obviously tell I don't have the qualifications to understand this, but like I almost considered getting like somebody who is scientifically inclined to come in here and like fact check some of this shit, because that did kind of take me away from it. That's like a nitpick that I had, but like, you know, when you're going about bending the laws of physics or reality, you first have to establish reality, and then you can go along and break it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say
guess
that.
so, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, like I have a like notes that I was taking. I watched this while I was doing Graveyard, but I had some funny things for like the character, this one of the biggest problems is that they have too big of a cast. It's too big of a cast.
You think so?
Yeah,
I
I'd
think
agree
it's
with
too
that.
big.
What?
It's too big of a cast.
Interesting.
And there's not enough time to get to know like a bunch of the people. So like when somebody dies, you're like, okay, you don't really care. Like when the first death happens, like I don't know who that person is. Like I don't care that you've died. Like I didn't care.
Are you talking about in an overarching sense of too big of a cast, or are you talking about the main core group of people is too much?
I think it had too many people to flesh out in the amount of time it had.
Yeah, like I think who's the main cast in this one? Like we can definitively say that the priest,
the professor, and
Mr. Miyagi. Again, I'm not using the real name. Mr. Miyagi and Brian
the
are
mustache man.
and Redhead are the main characters, and then you can throw Asian guy. Who again, see that's another thing that's a problem. Like the names of the character, like the names of the characters, you don't really know. Like if you're not paying attention really close. I mean. Yeah, I think you're right. Carpenter wants you to pay attention more with this, but the like you said, the characters and the acting aren't great. So
I think the acting was definitely a thing to not really like.
Well, like
to
I mean,
remember.
you can say acting to an extent, but you can also say like writing could be an issue with
Yes.
it. You know,
It could
like,
be that
some
too. Yeah, I don't think
Some
the
of the
writing
dialogue
was
was a bit
yeah, the dialogue
ridiculous.
was a bit. Yeah, I was about to say
Like when
that.
that Asian dude is like hitting on the Asian girl, and like that part was a little ridiculous. I thought it was funny. I actually disliked his character so much at the beginning because like all he does like whenever you see him is complain. Like they kind of do have characters and like this is who they are, but they're not real characters. They're just like this guy complains a lot, and this is this character, and this guy has a mustache, and like he's
So
also
typical
very bulky,
archetypes,
and there's a
basically.
redhead. Yeah, well, like
Yeah.
this one to me feels like more of like a slasher horror film. Not in the sense like that there's like it's a slasher, but like from a character standpoint, like the most important part of the movie isn't the characters. It's the monster, which
is
yes,
a
you
vat
could
of
you
goo.
could argue that should be with horror movies, but like the it should be even balance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I have some funny notes too. Like Jesus was an alien too, because
I took that note also. I took that.
yeah, you
exact
thought that was
note.
funny. There was some
Yeah.
funny things in this movie, like
It's
another
Looney
thing is, like,
Tunes, man.
It was a little. It was
That's
like
caca.
Yeah, that's caca. There's a lot of funny stuff. Like, you can get some funny stuff like from watching this movie, if anything else. But I thought they also, like, the impending threat was very vague. Like, I didn't know what exactly like, I knew that it was
A vat of goo
Satan.
that pees in your mouth.
Yeah.
Dude, you know what's funny? I like how South Park referenced this movie. South Park
did they?
referenced this. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Because how they possess people, they, like, throw up that goo onto each other. South Park did that in with the Member Berries episode. Like, you want to talk about, like, if we could talk about them for a while, we could make so many episodes.
Like,
But, yeah.
I just, yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty straightforward to, like, someone who can kind of, like, just sit and think for, like, a minute what the movie was, like, about. But I don't know. I maybe, like, I'm thinking that, like, John Carpenter was trying to be really artsy with this movie when it didn't need to be really artsy.
I wouldn't say artsy. I think this is within his wheelhouse.
I think he was definitely trying to say something, but he didn't really say
the
it
point
concisely
across,
until the
yeah.
mouth
Right.
of Madness. Yeah.
Well, like, you know what's funny? This movie, if you take away the dialogue and the characters, there's a lot of strong imagery in here that I think does a better job of conveying what Carpenter was trying to do, as opposed to, like, the dialogue and explanation of what he's saying. Like, you know, the old rule that I said before is show, don't tell. And they did that, but then they go ahead and tell. Like, and they don't tell it in a way that makes sense at times. Like, particularly, like, when they do, like, use imagery. Like, they use, the insects, like, consistently. That's one of the constant symbols that show up within the movie as an allegory for danger, death, and decay. Like, it really is decay, you know. And then, like, another thing is, like, Alice Cooper, you mentioned, he's like the lead zombie. He's like part of the homeless people that are possessed.
Yeah.
I kind of liked in that sense, like, they didn't tell you, like, right away, like, oh, they got possessed. Like, that was one of the parts where they showed and didn't tell, like, you know, like, okay, you know, these people are going to be like an issue later in the movie. Like, and we already know, just like by
Foreshadowing.
Like, just by intuition, like, we know that that this vat has an effect on people, and it can control. Like, you get a sense, like, it really, one thing it does well, like, with the, like, telling, is that it tells you it quantifies sort of the power of the evil. But it also is, like, it's kind of unquantifiable at the same time, which is odd, you know. But yeah. I mean, we didn't even mention soundtrack, but I think we can go into that when we're talking about all three.
He used a
But,
typical synthy soundtrack, I think, for this movie.
Yeah. Oh.
Which
One
was
thing
like-
I
which was-
really wanted to mention
Yeah.
with this is like, you know how you can tell, like, some movies are from the 80s and how other movies
Yeah.
are not from the 80s? Prince of Darkness is right from the get-go. You can tell from the 80s because, like, there's a thing with 80s horror movie. They have, like, a stylistic, like, a font that they use. And just like the particular style of shots, I think, like, if you take the Prince of Darkness and what other, The Fly and the Blob remake, they all kind of have the same look to them. Like, they're very similar looking. And I mean, like, obviously, like, the style of dress too. Like, you immediately know that these people are from
totally.
the 80s because they look like cartoon people. But, like, that's funny. Like, that's just, like, my commentary on, like, fashion in the 80s. But, oh, here's another thing that I thought was funny. That the anti-god, who's the big, like, bad in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, that was super lame.
The
that they
Satan
called
hand
him.
that came out of the mirror.
Yeah.
That one?
Well,
It
like,
looked like
he
a
was
Halloween prop.
he was supposed to be, like, the big bad. I think they
They
wanted to
filmed
make
that at
a
a
sequel
pool
with
at nighttime, I believe.
Oh.
Like, yeah, that's how they did that whole scene. The mirror was made of mercury, and I can't imagine that ever being safe to just stick your hand in a pool of mercury. Like,
It is. It's. I
I
mean, like,
don't-
it's not like the best, but you're not gonna die.
Mercury is, like, super toxic, though, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
I think it's when it's
it enters your-
ingested.
yeah, when it enters your body. But regardless, I just felt
Well,
like
That could be irritant to the skin, probably.
No, it's
right?
definitely irritant.
All right.
A funny thing is, Peter and I are like we're both musicians, and there's a vocal teacher. Like Joe Bell actually told me, like when she was little, that her doctor or like her dentist used to let her play with like the liquid mercury and stuff.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, that was back when they used to use mercury for like in the fillings for your
Yeah.
teeth.
That's
But
crazy.
anyways, now that we've got derailed, back to the movie. Like practical effects, definitely. Like we're talking about the mirror scene, like that's one of the strong points. I think
Yeah.
you can draw parallels to that and the practical effect in Nightmare on Elm Street when they do the bed and upside down, like how they did that. I think they did a similar thing with the shot where they shot it at a different angle, like it was probably flat with the water and having the hand come up. That was pretty cool. I mean that whole sequence where I don't remember their names again, sorry, but redhead.
I think her name was Catherine.
Yeah, I think her name was Catherine. Yeah, like redhead. I'm still gonna call her redhead because they don't deserve to like have actual character names. But like redhead
Well, excuse me.
tackles Satan into the mirror and then they
Yeah.
smash the mirror. I thought that like as an effects that was done so well. That was amazing to me. Like the bugs and the mirror scene. Oh, and we're not even like mentioning this. Like when Satan possesses that girl, there's a whole long, lengthy process of her, like her body degrading and just like becoming really nasty. And it really like looks like the like Satan is using like she's the vessel for him, but it's like destroying her body. You know, like if this movie, like I point to like Supernatural, like how when Lucifer possesses somebody who's not his true vessel, the body like what's the word I'm looking for? The body like decays. Yeah, I think like if they were trying to make a sequel, which the way it ends, like they were definitely hinting like the Carpenter wanted to make a sequel to this movie.
I don't think it worked out
I-
though.
Probably
No,
not.
it definitely
Yeah.
didn't work out. But like the way it ends, like I think like they like Catherine may have been the new vessel. They definitely like Catherine's the new vessel for the anti-god, but like
Sure,
you
yeah.
could have made an argument like that Satan could have like Catherine could have been Satan's true vessel.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, like the whole ending of this movie is like completely up to interpretation, which is like definitely what John Carpenter was going for, and was definitely one of the reasons why mainstream like media and critics at the time hated it. Like everyone wanted things to be really cut and dry in cinema at that time, and I think when John Carpenter was like, "No, I'm gonna make you think about the ending," it just kind of pissed off a lot of people. Like, I don't think they were appreciating it very much. They're like, I'd rather take my happy ending than have to sit and think about this movie. Like, I think it's one of those movies you need to watch like twice to really, really get. But that's if you can sit through it another time. I don't think it's that bad that you can't like watch the movie.
It's not like bad, but like
I just
really
think it's so
that
weak
this
in
movie
comparison to the other ones.
Well, like I think that this movie is just not. It's kind of poorly executed when you compare these other two. Like it's not a bad movie, but it's not a good movie. It's really not a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, and in technical terms, like, are any of these movies like considered good movies? Like, like
Yes.
people say the same
Yes.
thing. I mean,
It's not like it. It's a period thing. But the thing is, like you have to realize though, like when like movies come out, like audiences are like they're kind of swayed by what their perception of the movie is like going into it. Like last week we were talking about like how Mother was mismarketed, so like there was a lot of people that hated it, and It Comes at Night was mismarketed, which was a phenomenal movie. Again, I'm talking about it, but like like marketing plays a big factor into these movies, and I think like the thing. It wasn't going to get as much marketing as E.T. was,
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I mean, like the thing, like in a slightly off tangent, like do you guys know about the movie Pandorum? Have you guys seen that movie yet? Ever?
Yeah, I really like that movie.
Pandorum was heavily inspired by The Thing. I think they used the lighting that they used. That movie was super dark, and I just think that movie was actually really well done. But they were talking about how the reason why that movie didn't do successful is it had a really bad marketing campaign. Like majority of people didn't even know that movie came out when it came out.
Well, like another thing is like when movies are released, like there's certain dates, and like times on the calendar that if it's not released in summer or it's like released in like I think like February or January, like something like that, like where generally the bad movies come out,
Yeah,
like it's
that's a
not going to
rough
get
time
as big of
to-
a box office.
Yeah.
And it like even if you do release it in like a summer month, if another huge blockbuster movie comes out, like for instance today, if we have any of the Marvel movies that come out and you have an independent movie that comes out at the same time, what do you think people are going to go see? Right?
Yep, the Marvel one.
Yeah,
Right,
Marvel,
like
for sure.
there's an issue with how you put the movie, like when and where you put the movie out, and it's just like how you do it. But I mean, like, you know, reeling this back, I think that from a practical standpoint, this movie is on par, if not like, you know, better than some scenes in both movies. I think like it keeps a good practical. The way that this movie, I had a little bit of an issue. Like the movie kind of ends very abruptly. You know, like after that mirror scene, the movie ends basically, and then it goes to the you know, like the stereotype of the last scare in the movie. That's another thing I didn't like. You know, this movie felt too much like now's like movies, like how they're kind of cookie cut. Like if you take any one of the Blumhouse movies that like fail.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that, you know.
I mean, don't talk to me about new horror movies. I hate majority of almost everything that comes out in theaters nowadays. That's a horror movie. Like,
I mean, like one thing, like a lot of the modern horror movies, they share like the same issues, but I think with like in particular with the Blumhouse movies, like the reason that there's so many that come out, like even though a lot of people don't like them, is because they're so damn cheap to make, and that the box office, like they always have people coming in. That's why like we're gonna get better horror movies as time goes on.
hopefully.
But it's just like when people get sick of it, like the fad, like you know, like it'll happen. But you know, what are your final thoughts with this, Bryce?
For the Prince of Darkness, I just think it was sloppy all around thematically. Like, well, except for the visuals, I think there's with Carpenter, you always get a level of craft visually.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's technically well done and everything, but the movie just came across as sloppy. It had stuff on its mind, but it didn't know how to say it, and as a result, it didn't really say much of anything, I think.
Peter, what are your thoughts? Your final thoughts?
I think there were certain moments, like Bryce said, that really came out and stuck out throughout the movie. I think the movie has like certain lines and one-liners and certain scenes and visual effects that just, you know, stand out. But as a whole, I felt like it wasn't as polished as a Carpenter movie could have been, or at least in comparison to the other two, I felt like this one wasn't as polished. It was all right. I remember seeing this when I was really young, and I feel like I liked it when I was a lot younger. But, you know, your sense of perception of what's good and what's bad isn't so great when you're, like, you know, 10, 12 years old or whatever, whenever I watch this. But, you know, I think it was all right. Definitely not as good as the other two, but it was okay.
Yeah, like you know, it could have been done better, but at the same time, we have this next movie, In the Mouth of Madness, which Peter and I think all three of us are probably gonna love a lot.
Really liked this movie. This was the one I didn't hear about. That when you came over, Michael came over, and we like watched this movie together. And I sat there on my couch, just like, what the fuck is going on? Like 24, like, but like in a good way, not in a way where I didn't understand, but in a way where I was just like, this movie is absolutely insane. Like the visual effects, the cinematography of the movie, the way that things just consistently like. It was such a cool way to see the slow descent into madness. Like, I think the visual represent of, like, this descent into madness was what was the coolest part of this movie. You don't know, at least I didn't know, at least for, like, 75% through the movie, whether this is reality or whether this is just what's going on in the guy's head.
Okay,
Yeah.
and just to stop you right there before you get into it, I'd like to give the summary for the audience too. Like that was a good transition there. So like basically the summary is like a famous horror writer, Sutter Kane, suddenly goes missing, and John Trent is tasked with finding him. But as he starts to read some more of his work and piece together, he soon finds that the line between reality and fiction starts to blur. And like, yeah, you mentioned that very well. Like this, yeah, it is like a descent into madness. Like it's very aptly titled, and I think visually and from like a plot wise, it does a very well job of portraying insanity. Like the imagery that you see, like it's chaotic, it's psychotic.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
seeing all this, and then like the way that it's like progressing to the plot, it
Paced really
it's
well.
sort of like it's sort of like a gas pedal. Like you're slowly putting on pressure, and then it just starts getting faster and faster and faster, and then like, bam, you're hit with that ending. But the way it starts, though, it's like it starts with the kind of like the ending. I didn't like that it started with the ending first and then going back. You know, like that whole
Yeah,
cliche of like,
cliche of,
oh, how did I get here?
Yeah,
Let
like
me tell you the story.
Record scratch. Whoop, you're probably wondering
Yeah.
how I got in this situation. You know, kind of a scenario. Yeah, I didn't like that either. But I guess it was a good way to be like, all right, what the fuck? It was used as a way as a catch-all to like kind of like grab your attention. In the beginning of the movie, you're like, all right, what the fuck is going on here? Why is this guy in an asylum? You know.
See, this is where I think that, like, in my mind, I can draw comparisons between all three of the movies, just like how they were shot, and like if you break them down, the introductions like have a stylistic similarity that you can feel, like they take different approaches to get you interested in what the movie is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and and Bryce, I'm sure you have like a lot to say about this. Like, what do you think?
Well, if we're gonna keep going with the visual standpoint, and the opening scene, I actually kind of liked what it did because first of all, it gave you a reasonable doubt of sanity. It's like, okay, these people are insane, so you kind of temper your expectations for reality a little bit. But also, it establishes a visual motif of what I kind of think is a mouth. Like, if you look at the hallway, it's got the flat bottom, the tall sides, and the rounded top. And then it cuts to a window with the same shape. And then throughout the movie, it keeps cutting, like, doorways, mirrors in doorways, other windows. And it's constantly there. It's got, like, mouths, I guess. And I thought that was really cool with the cinematography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, continue.
And-
Sorry.
What I liked about this that I think Prince of Darkness wanted to do was it established that sanity was not as solid as we thought. Rather than just throwing things that kind of felt random at us, it like eased into it and poked little holes in your perception.
Yeah, from a conceptual standpoint, this was like what Prince of Darkness should have been.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
like all my issues with show don't tell, they did that. They showed. They didn't tell. They didn't really like assume that the audience didn't know what they were seeing.
It
you know?
definitely
Like,
felt like Carpenter reflected on Prince of Darkness before he made this movie and maybe made a more concise version of his vision there.
Oh, definitely.
Well, the time gap between these two is the longest too. Like, and this is, I think, what can also be said is when Prince of Darkness and The Thing came out, they were both released in the 80s.
This was in 1994, I believe.
Yeah, 1994. So this like had a 7-year gap between the last movie in the trilogy, and I think what can be said is like you can see how just in general like filmmaking is different. Like I think when you go to like different decades, you can see like what is consistent in how movies are shot and stuff. Like I always say like each decade has a particular quirk to it. Like the 90s had the start of the CGI with it, you know. That's when they started transitioning, or like not even just like started. They I think they started in like the late 80s with this like transitioning over from practical to CGI. This still uses I think this uses a little bit of both too. There's some scenes where they use CGI, but like it's where it's like appropriate.
It seemed mostly that this was practical effect. Even when like you had the old gods, like the old ones or whatever, those creatures chasing the main character down that hallway.
Yeah, that was practical.
That was all practical. I think I think I could see where the CGI was being used in the door. You know, the door where the demons are trying to bust out from Sutter Kane's, like,
I think that's
church.
still practical.
Is that
That looked
practical?
practical.
Like
to
when
me.
you're referring, yeah, that's still practical. No, the CGI portion that I'm referring to is when Sutter Kane, like, again, spoilers here. Like we're already in spoiler talk, but when Sutter Kane like rips his face like a page.
Oh,
that part,
yeah, you're right, actually.
That part I thought was so cool too. Like I thought this movie comes as close to perfection for me. Like, and this is just my own personal bias. Like with The Thing, as far as like taking the theme of the movie and then just exploring it in every avenue, like visually, plot wise, character,
Totally.
dialogue wise. I thought that it did a very well job of
Couldn't
that.
agree more with that. Yeah.
Right. And I thought like it, like there's a lot of like gems that you can pick from this, like just as from an analytical standpoint, like that like the paper tearing scene, like that it's visually like a representation of being in the book. I thought that there was like it does like a good job of like throwing twist and like at you, and then like you're like, whoa, this happened, and you're not like, where am I? You're like, whoa, I'm in a different place, but I like that this is like where this is going. Like
Yeah.
I thought like you understood like, okay, this is insanity, and then like you don't realize that until the end of the movie. You're like, okay, so you're going through the process of being insane, but like you don't know that you're going insane. Like you're going from reality into an insane world. Like you're taking it's like you're going into a book and living there, you know? And that's exactly what happens.
That's exactly what happens. And like at the end of the movie, you realize, oh, this is real. Like this isn't just him going insane. Like this is like absolutely, like totally what happened. Basically.
Well, like, but is it real though?
I guess.
Like,
I mean, I would assume so with that ending. You want it to think, because the premise of the movie is that it is real, right? So like,
No. I think like with this ending, like my interpretation is like, yes, in his world, like in his reality, the
real,
fiction
sure.
has become reality, and he's the last part of reality. Like that line that he said, it's like, when everybody goes insane, being sane must look insane.
yeah.
I'm not quoting verbatim,
Yeah,
but
what
I'm
she
paraphrasing.
what they were talking about in like the car ride. You know what I mean? With the girl, I don't remember what her name is, but it was him and her in the car, and they were talking about, like you said, like sure, like when you go insane though, you start to miss everything that was reality and what isn't reality anymore. Like,
well, like
that was a really dark time, and like I remember when I was watching it, I like remember when that whole scene was done, and I was just like, holy shit, Gigi, this is dark. Like, you know.
By the way, everybody, Gigi is my nickname. Just to like, most of you know that already, but just for those of you who don't.
Oh, that was
Freudian slip. So, like, the point that I was trying to make is that like he is like now officially in a story. Like it could be argued that he is no longer a part of reality. Like what you're seeing isn't reality, and it's the story. Like he's later revealed to be a character in the story. But what I think happens is like he starts off as somebody as a reality, and then he like becomes, through the means of supernatural, he becomes like supernatural and like mystical. He becomes fiction, you know? Like we say the line between reality and fiction blurs. I think in a sense it becomes a little bit of a meta.
Yeah, it's very meta because like essentially what Sutter Kane's argument is that if you believe it enough, then it's real to you. And you keep seeing that, like, people reading his books and then getting so caught up into it that they become paranoid. And that relationship between an author and its text and the audience's reaction with the text applies to the movie too. Like, as this character slowly gets exposed to this world, he starts questioning the real world more, and then the fear is what drives him to believe it. And as a viewer with the movie, if you get caught up enough in the movie, then it's going to cause actual fear. And that's the concept of like, if you believe anything enough, then it is real to you. You know what I mean?
And that's a real thing though too. Like another concept I believe in it, like bringing up is the power of belief. You know, like what can you make yourself believe, and what like like it really is like it's so concept driven. It's like, well, what is reality? Is reality like what you're seeing? Well, what are you like? Is what you're seeing correct? Like, it's all about perception, you know? Like, what is your perception? What's his perception? Is your perception the same as his perception? You know?
Yeah, I just thought that was
And
a
then-
really cool part they explored.
No, yeah, like this. I think that for all that Prince of Darkness did for the concepts and failing, like this picked it up and it's just like he made up for everything that he attempted to do in Prince of Darkness, and he did it with this one. Like
Yeah, for sure.
there's a sense of like, you know, whenever you feel like I don't know what's going on, like, and like I don't know if like I understand this particular point. It like as the movie goes on, like you may not understand it, but like you can chalk that up to this is insanity, right? Like there's a lot that you can ignore with it, like if you have an issue, because the movie is so well made. Like I from my personal opinion, you know.
Yeah, and the whole thing with your perception causing how you, or your understanding of the world causing how you perceive things. Like, I'll make up an example, but if you believe that gravity isn't necessarily real, but there are tiny invisible leprechauns pulling everything to the ground all the time. When you see something fall, to you, it's not going to be a question of like if it's something other than leprechauns, because all you know is that there are invisible leprechauns that fall to the ground. And
I mean,
so you're going to see everything that falls as invisible leprechauns. It's a
Yeah,
weird
it's
example,
like the
I'm
same
sorry.
concept as like someone saying the sky is blue, and he's like, oh, but I see the sky as purple, so therefore the sky is purple. Like that just starts developing into like weird philosophical stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, like, you know what's interesting too? Like I think within each movie, there's a sort of callback to the last movie. Like, so from this philosophical debate, like we're going from perception and like the what you say, like Bryce, with like the leprechaun pulling down. Like you could argue that connects to the theological like and scientifical thing, you know.
Yeah.
Like that's a little bit of a callback to the Prince of Darkness, you know. And it's not a direct one, but it's like once you start to think about these movies on a deeper level, you realize how they actually are a thematic trilogy, because these are not like sequential movies. Like it's sort of like, I would say this is like an anthology series without being an intentional anthology series, because I think that Carpenter later went back and said like this is a trilogy. Like I don't know if he intended
But they had
like
similar
this.
thematic ideas of questioning reality, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what he was going for.
Like, and the things that we mentioned, like that link it up together, like the overarching theme of the series is apocalypse. Like that's why it's named the Apocalypse. But it's dealing with it in a different like it's taking different approaches to the apocalypse, like how the world ends. Like in The Thing, it's a threat from extraterrestrial, you know. Like, and it's about like isolating this and attacking from there. And the same thing can be said, like instead of extraterrestrial in Prince of Darkness, it's a supernatural threat that's attacking them. So like, and that's another isolation. But from this one, like it's mystical. It's like it's a little bit of supernatural, but it's like it's more of I would say a mystical threat that you're dealing with in the movie.
Yeah, I would
And
say
like
that too.
like the consistency with this entire trilogy is that the threat is vague. It's more of a conceptual threat than it is a physical. And like in The Thing, yes, it's a physical threat, but the allegory is the conceptual threat. You know, like that I would argue is more important to it. And you know, like the lighting, I think in this one is actually a lot more brighter than the previous two. Maybe like the first 30 minutes of Prince of Darkness is like the same, but I think lighting wise, this is not as dark. But not to like to be mistaken, like the amount of practical effects that they use, like they use the right lighting for it, and like I think the audio here would be the biggest factor of it, like the intensity and scariness in the movie. Like I think that's what made it more scary for me is the audio portion
Yeah,
of
I think
the monsters.
See, I thought that the interesting part about like both of these movies were normally John Carpenter tends to write the music for all of his movies too. So I thought it was kind of fascinating that the one that I think it was The Thing, and the difference with The Thing and the other two was that he used a actual orchestral score.
Ennio Morricone was the composer for The Thing.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
He's like one of the most
Well,
prolific
like, you know what's funny?
composers for for movie writing, because he did Pink Panther movies and he did like a bunch of other movies too.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
He did the Bad and the Ugly. And I thought that was interesting that he got him to do that for The Thing, because at the time, synth parts were like the big movie making like scores for horror movies, and he decided he wanted to do something really different, and he wanted to go with like a full
that's
orchestral score.
another thing that I say goes back to the 80s, is that like our stylistic thing, like in the 80s movies, it was very common to see synth in it. And this like in The Thing, like it does use a synth, but like
it's more largely
it's used
orchestral.
so well, like you all know that I'm minimalist, and like it's very minimalist in the track. It's bass. A lot of times it's just the bass
and
note,
Ennio Morricone
and that
did an
does
amazing
that
job.
alone builds tension. You know, like
Yeah.
we talk about a lot like how music builds tension in this series, and I feel like that you like each like it's different for each one. I think that Prince of Darkness and The Thing are very similar in the soundtrack. Like I mean, I overall wasn't a big fan of Prince of Darkness, like, and the soundtrack didn't register with me, but I think in The Mouth of Madness it had it was more apt. I think like it fit well. Like there was a lot more in it going, you know.
See, I actually liked the soundtrack for Prince of Darkness. I thought it was very brooding and very appropriate for the movie itself. I thought it was simple yet effective. Like, out of everything that came out of that movie, like, if anything that I can go back that I would say I liked a lot was the soundtrack, for sure. I think it was really executed well in Prince of Darkness versus, like, in The Mouth of Madness, because I wasn't really paying attention as much to the score in The Mouth of Madness, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I just think in The Mouth of Madness had a lot more other, like, amazing things going for it than, you know, than the Prince of Darkness did, which didn't have that much in comparison.
Great. Bryce, what like you would probably have more to say about the soundtrack here. What are your thoughts about?
Well, with Mouth of Madness, I'd agree that I didn't notice it as much. I did like the kind of rock thing he had going during the beginning and end. I liked that.
Oh, that was very 90s. That was really, that was very different. I do agree with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Just to interrupt, you know what's funny here? Like you know what movie made actually the most money out of the three?
What?
And in comparison to its budget, Prince of Darkness.
Oh.
Prince of Darkness budget was only $3 million, and the box office brought in $4. Huh?
They made like 10 million or something like that, right?
They made like 14 million,
Okay.
like a little bit, or something like closer to 15 million. And in The Mouth of Madness barely made back the amount that like for the budget, you know. And we obviously like The Thing was a huge flop at the box office when it came out, but it's interesting to me that the movie that we dislike is the one that made the most. So I think that it could be said that
It might have been better marketed
for this, it probably was better marketing, and I think that the names like, or it was, I think it was not too long after the Karate Kid came out too, so I think like that might have had a factor, or the people had saw that, and like that one I think was
that could possibly make a difference.
well, like for a horror movie that makes sense for the box office, like why it was that, like I don't know, like it's different for each movie. I think like in The Mouth of Madness, this movie is actually like a lot scarier than The Thing and Prince of Darkness.
I would agree with
like,
that. I think this movie is slightly more terrifying, but not necessarily in like a typical terrifying fashion. I think it's terrifying in the way that it's just like mentally and visually. I think just things are so randomly weird. Like The Shining, like on an off tangent. Like
Oh yeah, I
think The
got Shining vibes from.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you get like Shining is terrifying in its own way. That I think
It's,
in the Mouth of Madness.
I think
definitely-
especially like the Shining vibes is when that bicyclist that's the Shining vibes for me.
Totally. Like I would agree with that too.
I just got a Shining vibe from like the opening shot of the asylum, like the car driving up, like the slow camera movement.
Wow, yeah, you're right. Because at the beginning of
from
The
there.
Shining, they have the car
do it at
driving
the
up the
end.
mountain. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they do it at the end too.
Yeah, that's totally right. That's totally a like double copy of itself.
So-
That's interesting.
Interesting enough, I looked at the IMDb page and the cast. Did you guys know that Charlton Heston was in this movie?
Yeah, he was the publisher.
I didn't even
Charles
notice
Heston?
that. It's
Yeah.
it's a little like it's awesome to have those little gems
in
with
it.
those guys coming in.
Charles Heston.
Yep. Like so we actually haven't really talked about like Sam Neill's portrayal of this character. Sam Neill, like if you guys don't know who he is, he's I forgot his name from Jurassic Park.
Was it
but
like
he's
Alan
the,
Young or something?
Yeah, Alan. Yeah, so he's that guy. So like that's probably all you know him from, and then
Or Hunt
maybe
for the
if
Wilder
you like,
People. For anyone who's seen
Huh?
that. Hunt for the
Huh?
Wilder People.
yeah,
anyone
yeah,
seen
yeah.
that? He's
Well,
in
like I
that,
mean,
yeah.
if you somehow saw Daybreakers, he was in that movie, but I doubt you saw that movie because it's honestly not that great of a movie. But I think like that he does well when in this role when he's not really doing some of the insane parts. Like he does it well at the end, towards the end. I thought like that's like he's doing really well in this movie. Oh, I completely forgot he was in Event Horizon too. He was
yeah.
the big bad in that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like there's just certain things that Sam Neill does that are just kind of funny, like his mannerisms, like how he reacts to things. Like when he gets flustered about like reality and fiction blurring, like this is not reality, like that. Like he has like these certain quirks that you can appreciate from a comedic standpoint, but from like it sometimes takes you out of the story, you know.
I think they just did the correct casting overall for this movie. Like,
Yeah.
I think
Sam
every
Neill
person,
does
every person
great
that they
job
got,
overall.
and who they got for Sutter Kane too. That Jorgen, what's his name? God.
Jurgen Prochnow?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't say that correctly.
He also did a really good job with Sutter Kane. I think.
Yeah, but he was only in the movie for a total of like what 10, 15 minutes,
I mean,
right?
regardless though, for what
Maybe.
they like put him in there for, he did a great job with the character. Even if
No,
the character
yeah,
was
like
only for a
they
short
they
period
use
of time.
everything like they use it in the right way. Like there's a lot like I said, like this movie comes the closest to being perfect for me.
Yeah, I think this one definitely was an experience to watch in like every positive and negative way. Like I don't know, there isn't a lot of things that I can say I really disliked about the movie. I thought the pacing was good. I thought the message was good. I thought that the music was like I guess this is the only lackluster thing. I think the music was done well in its own way. I think the contrast between the score and then the really big rock like ending and beginning intro music was unique in its own way. Yeah, this was a good one. This was definitely my favorite of the three for sure.
Yeah, like you know, and I just like to bring it back to like the practical effects, like going to the monsters. Like it's similar to the Thing, like in all its forms in the Thing. But like one thing that I can draw parallels to, like with some of the monsters and like the imagery from his stories, like I got a very Cronenberg vibe from it. Like Bryce, did you get any of that? Like when you were watching some of them play?
In retrospect, yeah, I do get a really Cronenberg vibe. From that tunnel though, like the tunnel that Sam Neill had to run through, I actually got a Geiger vibe from that, like H.R. Geiger. So you've got a lot of. It feels like there's a lot of influence from all these famous monster people.
Yeah,
And I thought he did a really good job with it overall.
One thing I really liked about that, and going back to like the Shining thing, like in the chase scene, like it was showing him in ahead, and then like the monsters like falling, but like never really in the same shot. Similar to how when Jack chases what's the little kid in the Shining's movie name again?
Oh God, I don't remember, but I know the
Anyways, like when Jack is chasing his son, Like I think it was similar to that as well. Like when his son is ahead of him, and you can see that Jack Torrance is just a little, like he's just a little bit behind. I thought that was like another similarity within the poop within The Shining and In the Mouth of Madness. You know, like I think Carpenter, like I can't remember, but I marked in a note like Carpenter does a good job of making reference of other movies as well. Like he pays homage to other movies.
Definitely. I think he definitely pulls his inspiration from other films and likes to apply it in his own way.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, like, I think like we've touched base on like everything that comes with this. I mean, Bryce, do you have any like final thoughts for like the movie and then just the series as a overall?
I guess for Mouth of Madness, I could finish up on my thoughts of the music overall too, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
With the Thing, I'll just touch up on that quickly. I think the whole integration of like those little bass synths at the beginning, it was very sparse, and I thought it fit the environment pretty well. And then Morricone adds a bunch of like chromatic stuff in the bass register for the orchestra, and then high chromatics for the strings. Or not chromatics, harmonics for the strings. I thought it added a lot to the atmosphere, but I did feel it lacking a little bit in the middle. Not as in like the music itself, but it just wasn't there when I felt like it should have been. Maybe it's just me, but as for Prince of...
a little bit of a perfectionist there.
Well, it's like I wanted more of the music.
No, like I
you
get
know what
that
I mean?
too. Like,
anyway.
Yeah, no, like and specifically like I felt the same way. Not towards the music, but like in the alley scene where the guy dies. Like I thought that was good, but it could have more. Like there are definitely points in this whole series I felt that they did well, but they could have done better. You know.
Yeah, and then musically, I think Prince of Darkness was my least favorite.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I was thinking specifically of this one sequence early on where they're doing their research, and you've got this kind of groove going on, but it's kind of indifferent to the scenes that are going on, and as a result, the scenes blur into each other and don't really leave an impression.
That's why I didn't
Does that
really
make sense?
remember the
I think that's
soundtrack.
kind of interesting. I don't know. I liked the soundtrack, at least for Prince of Darkness. I thought it was interesting. Oh, it was well done. I don't know.
And on
I guess in the context of like in a vacuum,
on its own,
I liked the music. On its own, I think that's how I'm thinking it more than like you know, in relation to the films themselves. You know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Because on its own, I think it's fine. But with the movie, it just felt weird to me.
Right. Yeah. Peter, let's get your last thoughts for this.
I mean, overall, I really enjoyed like watching all three of them. I don't regret sitting through one of them or not being able to sit through one of them at all. Even if Prince of Darkness wasn't as great, I would definitely recommend someone to watch it. I would say, yo, go watch this movie. Like it's not as good as the other three, but you won't regret your time watching it. And watching the whole trilogy especially is just
it's definitely important.
Yeah,
it's definitely imperative that you watch all three of these movies because I think that you can get a wider scope with this.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think I would recommend it to people who are not into horror movies. That for sure. I don't know. I think it has very horror movie tropes to it that like I can't imagine like someone like, for instance, like one of my parents ever watching this movie. Like this is just definitely not up their alley in the world of like film and cinema and things like that. But
no, but like if I were to try to get somebody to watch horror movies, this is what I would start them with because
it's a good start.
There's a huge misconception with horror movies. Like horror movies can do a lot and have a deeper message within them than people realize. It's not just about like a scary movie. There's a deeper story that goes on with each like horror movie and movie.
That's what all the best horror does.
Actually,
arguably.
Totally agree with that. And this is like slightly off topic, but not really. So there's a YouTuber that I watch. His name is called Magic Carp Use Fly. He's a video game YouTuber, but he recently started doing video essays. And he did a video on why horror movies are so important to like the overall platform of cinema, and it's called The Importance of Horror and Why Horror Movies Don't Suck. And it's like a 33-minute like video essay on like horror movies and their like role in the movie industry, and it's really really good. So if you should definitely go watch that if you're interested in horror movies.
No, yeah, like, and like that's like the thing too. Like, if people like, if you have misconceptions about horror movies, they'll surely be turned on their head when you watch all three of these movies. I mean, not really with Prince of Darkness. I think you can argue that's the closest to being just like a typical horror movie. And like for rating systems, like I'll ask you both to give ratings at the end. But like for a rating, like I would give that one like personally a 6 and a 5 for audiences. You know,
like Prince of Horror,
Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness. Sorry. I would give that a 6. Like a 6. I think Prince of Darkness is a solid 6 out of 10. I would agree with that.
I like, and generally, like, I have a different criteria for horror movies. Like, horror movies, I usually, like, from a filmmaking standpoint, I think, like, this movie was an 8, but it was executed at a 4. And, like, I would, if I said from filmmaking, I'd give it a 4. But, like, I even that out and give it a 6 for my own personal thing. But it really is just, like, it's okay. It's okay. And like,
that.
The thing I would give that like a 9 out of 10 for audiences, like if you have any flaws with it. Personally, it's a 10 out of 10 for me.
I would give Thing like an 8 out of 10. I think Thing is
and I
good.
think that's just because I think there's like you're either going to really like The Thing or you're really going to like In the Mouth of Madness. And it just depends on which one you see first.
Yeah, I think In the Mouth of Madness definitely is my 9 out of 10. Like, that movie's awesome. It's just a great movie.
I would give that movie a high 8 out of 10, just for both, honestly. Maybe I'd give it a 9. Like, personally, I'd give it closer to a 9, like an 8.7 for a personal. But, like, I think like it's probably like a solid 8, you know? Like, that's very good.
Non-biased, yeah, probably 8 out of 10. Being biased like I am,
what about
9 out of 10 for that movie.
Right. Bryce, what are your ratings here?
For all of them, or just... Were we just talking about In the Mouth of Madness?
Yeah, we were. But we were talking about all of them. You can rate them in whatever order you like.
Well, The Thing for me, I think, is like a 9. And before, I think it would have been more at an 8, but it got better with each rewatch. I think the latest one, which was this morning, I think I'm solidly at a 9 now.
I might need to give it a rewatch. I've only watched it once. I might need to give it a second watch.
Oh, dude, you definitely need to rewatch it. Like, I've watched that movie countless times. Though the reason that movie is a 10 for me is because every time I watch it, I'm never not interested, and it never not gets old for me. Yeah, I mean, like that could be said about anybody's favorite movie, because this is my favorite movie. But like, there's like it's universally accepted. Like there are things that this movie does that like you can learn from in filmmaking, but also like just from effects. You know, like. If we really wanted to improve the state of like creature movies, because I think we don't have a lot of creature movies that come out for
definitely not
horror now.
Creature
like,
movies
you could look back to this
anymore,
and say like, well, we can model a practical effect and then use the CGI. Which again, going back to the Good Bad flicks, like he talks about the prequel and how it started with practical effects, but then it just like got screwed over with the CGI and it wasn't what it was supposed to be. But, you know, like, each one of these movies, and even Prince of Darkness, like, it warrants a rewatch. Like, you definitely can watch these movies over and over again, and it's beneficial to you, like, from an entertainment standpoint. Like, you're definitely going to be entertained with each one of these movies. I think that In the Mouth of Madness, like, for all its concept, it's never too artsy. Like, it's not even artsy. It's more of an entertainment film, and the concepts I think are palatable to it's got a message that reaches a wide array of people. Like, would you agree with that, Bryce?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think In the Mouth of
Peter?
Madness is definitely either the most or the second most palatable of the trilogy for a general audience.
Peter, what about you?
I would agree with that. I think In the Mouth of Madness definitely is the most. Actually, No, I actually think Prince of Darkness is the most palatable for people. I just think that it's simplistic, like character design and like storyboard design kind of makes it more approachable for people. But I think when you watch all three of them, you kind of realize that this one isn't as good as the other ones, in a way. I think In the Mouth of Madness comes second, and I think The Thing definitely, like even I think I need to rewatch through that movie, and I might be able to reach the same conclusions as you guys are reaching on the movie if I just go and rewatch it. So
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, like that. Did you both give your ratings? I didn't hear.
I might not have gotten to the other two yet.
Okay, let's get your ratings for the other two.
I've seen In the Mouth of Madness and Prince of Darkness twice. I think for me, Mouth of Madness would be like a 7 or 8. And the only reason it's lower than The Thing, I think, is because The Thing has that like sci-fi alien aesthetic, which I'm really endeared to. So it's just got the upper hand on that side because I'm biased. Prince of Darkness, I can recommend it in 2 contexts. Either as part of this trilogy so you can observe what went wrong, or as like schlock. Because if I'm being honest, like it's like when you're like 25 minutes in a movie and then some random guy just, is outside standing there with like pale makeup on, supposed to be scary. It's just, I'm not always sure what it's going for. And I feel like if I went into it looking more for like just kind of cliched or silly entertainment, I might have enjoyed it more.
Right.
Yeah.
No, like and Prince of Darkness too. Like it wasn't the biggest thing is both of In the Mouth of Madness and The Thing have a sense of intensity and creepiness, whereas in Prince of Darkness, it's creepy in the imagery, but it's not scary.
I think it can be enjoyable though.
It can be enjoyable, but it's
maybe
just like,
not in the way that the other two are.
No, yeah, and I think like there'll be people who enjoy or like who have a better understanding of this movie and enjoy this more than say like In the Mouth of Madness. But like I think like we can all conclusively agree that this is not Carpenter's best work.
no,
Yeah.
definitely not.
Yeah, and so what's the last one? Have you given your review for the last one?
I think if I had to rate Prince of Darkness on a personal level, I might be around a 3. And that's not necessarily a bad 3. That can be a 3, like, I didn't like it, but it was kind of entertaining. I think for a general audience, it might set around a 5.
Yeah, 5
that makes
I
sense.
think is
I
safe.
thought
5
about
or
that.
6.
Like 5 for 6, I think would have been Prince of Darkness's rating for sure.
Yeah.
Like the way I do it though is like 6 is where it's like enjoyable. I enjoy Prince of Darkness. Like like you said, there's a comedic aspect to it that makes it enjoyable. Like that is intentional, but sometimes most of the time isn't intentional. But as a whole, I'd say that this is a series that if you call yourself a movie nerd or a film buff, you need to watch.
Yes.
And so I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us today. This has been, the podcast with special guest Peter. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It was fun.
Yeah.
Sure thing.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't know what I think we're going to do 8th grade next week. I still need to go see that, Bryce. I'm sorry. I'll see it.
That's all good.
Yeah, we might do that one next week. We'll let you know in the time being.
Don't worry.
Bo
Yeah.
Burnham
We'll figure it out.
Right?
Yeah. We'll let you know in the time being. That's going to do it for us. Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. They do a good job. Yeah. Some good characters there. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. A little bit about everybody else.
Yeah.
Hey, can you shut your dog up?
Yeah, 1 second.
Cut.
Cut.